And it says we're live. How do you do, buckaroos? This is Tom the Beer Whisperer. This is a Beer Whisperer pub video, and I'm being joined by Jean-Pierre. We decided we're going to talk about IPAs today. John, I've got one from, it's a local home brew shop, actually, but they brew their own stuff. It's their red IPA. That's dry hop with juniper berries at 7.75%, about 60 IBUs, they thought. It's incredible. So tell us what you're drinking.
I am drinking Freckle Belly by the Back 40 Beer Company, and
Oh,
they're
wow.
based in Gadsden, Alabama. It's a IPA. It is 7% ABV, and this is my first time having this. So I'm kind of excited and can't wait to try it. See what I got.
I'm not familiar with that brewery at all. Have you had other things from them?
Yes, I've had their Truck Stop Honey. I've also had something else there. A brown ale that they have. The name escapes me which one the name. They have these different names they have, but the beer again. The beer is a local brewery again, Gadsden, Alabama, which is about a good 3 hours away from where I live. And like I said, two of their beers. This is my third beer from them I've had. So looking forward to trying it.
Very good. Have you got it poured?
What is that? Yeah, I got it
Oh, there
poured
you
right
go.
over here in my glass. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Let's take a look at that. So, how would you describe that color, Jean-Pierre?
It's a little a nice amber color to it right now, as you can see, like a nice little copper and maybe amber copper color, more so of a light copper, but it's really nice, very pretty. Nice lacing up top right now, as you can see, and fragrant and the scent wise, I would say not your standard IPA, but this one has a little more. This one has a little more citrus to it. A little bit, I would say, more of a, I would say tangerine, more orange scent to this beer. And most IPAs tend to be, well, double IPAs tend to be a little higher, maybe between 7 and maybe 10%. And this was at 7. So I don't know if this was going to be considered a double IPA or maybe an imperial style, but IPA. But for 7%, it has a very nice fragrance.
Kind of depends on who you talk to. I've had different responses about that. For me personally, I look at anything over 8% in that double or imperial range, but some will
Right.
look at 7 to 7.5. Again, the one I'm drinking is 7.75. So again, I mean, it could also be considered a double or imperial red as well.
Right. Right. And and the thing is, and we I guess let me finish talk about this, but then I'll get into the topic about IPAs. But tasting it right now, really nice finish. It's not bitter at all. No bitterness going down to it. It's a very nice little fruit finish to it. Very hoppy, I would say. This is pretty good. This is pretty good for a 7% beer.
So what does that run a 6-pack?
Actually, they don't have it at 6-pack right now. I only seen it in a 12-pack for this,
Oh,
and
really? Okay.
yeah. So this will from when I was there today and I passed leaving and I saw it and I said, well, let me go get the singles of this. I think it was going for like $13.99 for a 12-pack. So
Oh, well, that's damn
pretty
reasonable.
reasonable. Yeah. Took it for a brewery based here in the state, and as you know, Alabama. I don't know what the taxes are in Missouri, but Alabama does have one of the highest top 5 in terms of taxes in terms of beer in the state. So it can be a pain at times, but it is what it is.
You got to make their money somewhere.
Exactly. So
Okay,
uh,
so we were going to talk about basically IPAs in general, but I mean, looking at what you have and what I have, I think we almost made the point before we even start the conversation how much IPAs have evolved from its original origins, from the very first American craft IPAs to now. I mean, you've got so many different versions of an IPA now.
so many different versions, and again, the style has been around for a long time. I mean, going back, before I was born and probably before you were born too. I mean, but again, a lot of these breweries, felt hey, we're going to stick to what we're doing. And, like with Ballantine Ale, they did an IPA years ago and it was very popular, but it wasn't bringing in, I guess the bottom line compared to the ale version. So a lot of these IPAs have been around forever, and everybody thinks that people I've hang out with think, oh, IPAs, oh, this is a new style. I said, no, this style's been here forever, and it's just like it grown to different things, as you said, involved, to to a level that's unheard of. But some people care for them. I like them. Others think they're just too sour, and this ain't for me. But to me, I think the texture. This is the way beer was supposed to be made, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to look back at history, I mean, you're talking about adding hops as a natural preservative. So hops were added so the beer would preserve for the long voyages. But as far as the American craft versions, when they started popping up in the late 80s to 90s, they really started as more of a traditional English or British IPA, but it's really evolved from there.
Exactly. So now there's some that have done well commercially, whether it's been the Goose, that one comes to mind. The Lagunitas, the Sierra Nevadas Extra Torpedo, that's more of a double IPA, but the ones that have done very well commercially, where they're almost, you can get even at a corner store, at a service station. You have done, and then you have ones that have not done so well, but sort of have a craft, when I say craft beer niche, but sort of have a hold within the craft beer community. So.
Well, yeah, there are certainly craft beer darling beers that the certain folks will always gravitate towards. Absolutely,
Right.
I tend to look for the obscure. I mean, like this one, for instance. You're only going to find this one if you happen to visit Missouri. It's a small.
Right.
It started as a home brew shop, but they also have a micro brewery license. So now they're brewing their own beers. That's one reason I wanted to showcase it, because it's not likely to ever get out of the state. You're going to have to, not only have to visit Missouri, you're going to have to visit me right here in Springfield, Mo, to ever try this.
Same thing with this beer right here. It's only sold in the state. It hasn't been, from what I can tell, I don't see this when I'm in Mississippi, and I definitely don't see this in Georgia. So this is only in Alabama. So I guess it's one of those things where, you have to come visit and, kind of grab one of these and travel back home with you. So.
But I do that anytime I travel anywhere. I try to find something specifically local to whatever that area is. Yeah. And I like to find that the smallest, most obscure breweries possible.
And the thing about what you said about local, I understand at times why these craft beer guys have to spend, or why folks have to go spend the money they have to spend for these beers. I know maybe out of pocket to some, but you got to remember with the time it takes to put these beers together locally. And I just say, show them some love, support them. I mean, you're helping the local economy of that place or in that state, and, giving people a good reputation. Say, hey, Alabama or Missouri has, pretty good craft beers as compared to, people would think of craft beers. People think maybe California, people think of Oregon or Washington State or, Massachusetts. But, it's just like, when you support local breweries, you're giving it a lot of, you're showing a lot of love to them and a lot of love, to their beer. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you hear a lot about the East Coast, the West Coast,
Right.
but there's, I guess you would be considered in the South where you are. I'm considered Midwest. There's a lot of great breweries in almost every state. Sometimes you just got to look for them. But I mean, St. Louis, Missouri, for instance, has some of the best craft breweries in the country. Where I'm at in Springfield, I've got Mother's, White River, Springfield Brewing Company, and now Show Me, very small, doing some great beers. It's very small, so you actually have to go there. But at Northwest Arkansas, I travel to Northwest Arkansas a lot. There's just there's getting to be a ton of great breweries out there. Bentonville Brewery, Bike Rack Brewery, uh, New Providence. A lot of these may not ever get out of the state, and if they do, it's going to be quite some time before they get there. So I think if you are a beer person, I don't think you can eliminate the South or the Midwest. You can't just travel from coast to coast and say, "Look, I've tried all the great beers," because there's great breweries no matter where you go.
Right, right. That's kind of how I feel about it. Another thing about IPAs, what my only concern is that why did they not keep them going during that period or during that time? Um, when they, like I said, they've been around forever, but why did they stop in making them? And I know the reasons, again, financially, again, it's not bringing in money versus our namesake brand beers. But I felt at that time, and even back in the 70s or maybe in the 80s, they could have kept putting them out and saying, hey, we're just as good as this is a good beer. Come buy it, come sample it, come try it.
Well, a lot of it is prohibition. I mean, before
Right.
prohibition, there were a lot of great uh, small breweries. They don't know that they called themselves craft breweries back then, but there was a lot of great neighborhood breweries that were crushed, and only the big guys could survive afterwards.
Right.
The big guys made darn well sure that little breweries didn't pop up. So anytime somebody tried to get started again, those big evil empires would swallow them up as soon as they could. Up
Right.
up until the craft beer revolution really started in the late '80s, and I think it's become a whole different animal. You're starting to see that process again, though, where you have these big giants trying to swallow up. As soon as a craft brewery becomes big enough to become any kind of a danger, is a perceived danger anyway, they want to buy these breweries up.
Right. I mean, and I know that those breweries have made those styles of beers before. Bud, I'm sure they made an IPA before. Same with Coors, and same with and Pabst, and just recently now, bringing back what the Bounce on IPA, now bringing back the Old Tankard Ale. Now, these are the recipes that they've done before, and they're making them affordable now for folks like myself. You can go ahead and buy them and sample them, but it was just a shame that they couldn't, keep it going during that period. So, and like I said, I don't know whether it's religious reasons or moral reasons why. I've read all this stuff about prohibition, but I just feel that let the adults decide what they want to drink. That's kind of how I've always felt about it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I don't want to get into politics on this show, but
Neither do I. But
but in that vein, yeah, I mean, I think everything ought to be legalized, taxed, and regulated, no matter what it is. Put it all
yeah.
out there, let everybody make their choice. I mean,
Right.
everybody's going to get whatever they want anyway, whether it's legal or not. If you make everything legal, then you take organized crime out of the equation.
Right.
So, but you make it all legal, let everybody make their decisions. But
Yeah.
back to IPAs, John.
Yeah, I know.
So okay? So do you have a favorite local IPA? Let me ask that question.
The one that stands out for me that's local, well, it's in our neighboring state, and that one is the Southern Hospitality IPA by Lazy Magnolia. And I did a review of that beer, and I thought that was really, really good for an IPA. Now, in terms in our state here, I know Fairhope Brewery has Take the Causeway IPA. That's good. Sorry, I'm trying to think of others in the state here that they good people. I forgot to mention them. Their IPA is stellar. John Sharon told me that he gets that IPA up there, up in Indiana, and of course the brewery is based in Birmingham. So I guess the I-65 corridor, goes up to Indiana. So I guess you can get that. So and through Missouri, of course. So those are probably the two locally that I would enjoy. I would say I would lean more towards the Good People IPA as probably being the better, as the better one. That's very rich, nice texture, smooth, very little bitterness to that IPA. Just one of the best that I've had. And actually, I have a can of it back here, which I'm gonna ship to a friend of mine's. And he saw the review I did, and I said I'll send you one to you. So yeah, that of all the IPAs, I say in my state, I say that one is probably the best by far.
Very good. I've got two in Springfield I really like. From Springfield Brewing Company. They've just came out with one this year uh, called the Green Ghost, and that beer was just phenomenal. As well as White River, another small brewery you're going to have to come here to see.
Right.
I've got one called Gravel Bar IPA. They're both kind of that nouveau style IPA. They're very light and bodied, a whole lot of tropical fruit. They're all very nice. Show Me has another great one, a regular IPA called their Dancing Bear, which is a fine IPA as well.
Okay. Okay. And another one. I did a review of this one, but I butchered the pronunciation of it. High Ally. I don't know if you heard of them. High Ally. Yeah, from they're down in Tampa. I guess they're nowhere near my area, but it is in neighboring Florida. But of the ones in the state, again, I mean, our state has really gotten better. I mean, we were at that time before, I think in the 1970s, if I can recall, reading that it was under the Carter administration, we were able to allow to do home. They were able to allow folks to do home brewing. So they had a lot of folks doing home brewing in the state here and of Alabama. And like I said, I've only been here in 10 years, but when I came here in 2006, at that time, they didn't have anything. You couldn't sell any beer over 6%. Because of law. So, and then that law changed in 2009, where where it was okay. You can now start selling beer over 6%. And there were a couple of breweries here, but since that time, since 2009 up until here we are now, 2016, 7 years, we have at least about 28 breweries in the state. Before, when I moved here, it was, I think, only about maybe 10. So from 10 to 28 is just phenomenal, to get where it is right now. And all of them are putting out good stuff. Some have reached outside and they're going to their neighboring states, Tennessee and, Georgia and Florida and Mississippi. But overall, I mean, they have started to really get a name for themselves now as like, hey, Alabama's really putting out some good stuff here. Let's take a look, and which is good for someone who's living down here. So Alabama has other reputation at times, which has not been positive, but we're getting a good positive reputation when it comes to craft beer. So,
well, that's good. So, talking about IPAs, we talked about the traditional British IPAs. Most American crafts started out being their version of traditional British IPAs. It's really evolved from there. But my question is, do you have a favorite style now that there are so many? You have East Coast, West Coast, New England or Boston IPAs, whatever you want to call them. You got red IPAs, black IPAs, you got session IPAs, imperial IPAs. Do you have a particular favorite style in that mix, or you just enjoy them all depending on the mood?
I would say I enjoy them all, but I really like those imperial ones more so because, again, the alcohol that's involved in it, they're a lot more, and also it has a more full body feel to those compared to the ones that I've mentioned earlier. The ones I was like somewhere between 4 and maybe as high as maybe 6 or 7%. But when it comes to the imperial or double ones, those are the ones I feel have a better texture, better flavor, more attitude, and really just really a very well made craft beer in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Whenever I find a new craft brewery, I always want to try their double or imperial IPA if they have one for exactly those reasons you mentioned. I mean, but you approach a beer like that different, don't you? I mean, if you
Yes,
pop a 4% beer, you know it's hot, you drink it quick. But when somebody you're at a brew pub and they pour you an 8, 9, 10% beer and then probably
and in the glass like that, the same
a
glass that you're drinking in right now. Exactly. Exactly.
you approach it more like almost drinking a fine glass of wine. You know, you take your time, you
Exactly.
relax, you take small drinks. It's just a whole different drinking process.
Exactly. Exactly. And I see. I remember the first time I had an IPA. It's kind of funny. So the first time I had an IPA was what was it? 2006. I don't recall what beer it was, but it was an Imperial Ale, Pale Ale. I had it, and I just like, ugh, what the is this? At that time, again, I had not been watching a lot of videos at the time, and then within time, I began to see what what the style was about, and I kind of gave it a chance. And now it's like, hey, these are these are quite good.
Yeah, I agree. So, how long have you been doing beer reviews, beer videos, that sort of thing?
Well, like I said, I started about around this time last year, and like any red-blooded American, I love beer. I like wine, and I just started to watch some videos. I think about 2013, 14, I started watching a lot of videos on YouTube of different folks, doing beer reviews, whether it been yourself. I know you did one with Jay, and that's why I started following you, Maria Devon, like I mentioned, Ronald J. Terrio, Thomas Metal, Eric, based in Boston, Massachusetts. And then, of course, you got John Sharon's own Beer One, a lot of different Hoagie beer reviews, Albino, all these guys. I started watching all their videos and seeing different beers, and I said, well, let me see if I can say, And there were fun conversations to have because, I was this, guy, thought the only thing that was considered craft was Yingling, you know, Yingling, or maybe I heard a lot about Saranac, and that was another beer I heard about a lot about. All these other beers, I've seen before but never tried. But growing up, it was always the Coors Light, the Coors Extra Gold, the Schaefer's, and all these other different things. And you know, so I wasn't really fully aware and educated about all these different beers. And then I started watching a lot of everyone else's videos. I say, well, let me try this, see how this tastes. Oh, this tastes pretty good. Hey, this tastes pretty good. So, so then I would do some videos with Jay, starting about around. With my first video with Jay was around New Year's Eve, 2014. At that time, 2014 going to 2015 New Year's Eve, and that was my first video with Jay. And I started, saying, hey, this is kind of fun. Let's do more of these, and kind of went on from. And about August of 2015, so I did my first video. It was Ice House Edge was the first video I did, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to say, "What the hell are you doing a video on Ice House Edge for?" What the fuck, But yeah, Ice House Edge was the first video, and then of course now they've been several, and the last one I did last night of Kronberg 1664. So from August of 2015 up until right now, here we are. So.
Well, as we wrap up this session, Jean, are there any last tasting notes you want to add about what you're drinking?
No, I think this is a very good IPA that I'll probably buy another one, probably do a review of this again, just for me, to the audience who on my channel. And this is a very good IPA. And again, it says that this brewery here, Back 40 Beer Company, is putting out some good stuff. And for 7% IBA, this is quite good.
Very nice. Well, I didn't talk about a lot of tasting notes on this because I've done a video for it before, but I'll give you a brief synopsis as we wrap it up.
Okay.
775. I think he said 60 IBUs. It's basically a red IPA, dry hopped, or that uses juniper berries. So you do have that extra kick and that extra pine that works with the hops that are used, but it is a very malty IPA as well. Uh, Not sweet, but it is robust. Let's just say, and I love this style, especially as the weather starts to cool down in the fall. So, hey, I want to thank Jean for joining me for this session. I want to thank anybody that happened to tune in or may watch later. It's Tom the Beer Whisperer, and we'll talk to you later.